Dennis Schmidt from Sandia Aerospace. You've had a lot of interesting little boxes to show us over the years, but this is the coolest little box you brought so far. Dennis, tell us about the SAI 340 Quattro.
Well, it's gotten a lot of attention. It is a standby indicator, 3-inch instrument. It gives us attitude, altitude, airspeed, and slip. Fairly small unit. We're very proud of the back of the unit as well. It fits in a standard 3-inch instrument hull.
Not much panel depth, is there?
No. Actually, the most of it is a standby battery that fits in this case here. We use A+ ground, pitot, and static. And you have a complete system for standby. As you can see, it's operating just fine as it is right now, pitch and roll, and there's no power.
Okay.
The unit will be TSO'd for all functions, including a multi-function display.
Okay.
So we'll carry 6 TSOs, and it's going to be available at Oshkosh.
Okay. Where do you see this fitting in the initial market? Who's the target for this? What kind of pilot, what kind of aircraft is going to look at this and go, yeah, mine, all mine?
So we're going to all glass panels today, and having a standby instrument is very important. When everything goes black, we'll be the last to let you know. And we have standby instruments today, but they run in the $10,000 range. So a guy flying a Bonanza 210, it gets a little tough to get into that. This has a $3,600 list price.
Okay.
3-year warranty. It's certified to 35,000 feet, so it'll work from anything from King Air on down. And it just gives you a lot of capability and no reason not to have a standby today.
Okay. And as I recall, you've got a battery backup built into the unit itself that's good for how long?
Okay, so it will operate nominally for 2 hours on the battery.
Okay.
I've been running now for a little over a half hour. We're at 78%.
Okay.
Minimum of 30 minutes. Really depends on a couple conditions. We do have heaters for the sensors, for the altitude and the airspeed. So if it's at a cold start of minus 20 degrees on battery, it would last about 35 to 40 minutes. Typically, you're not going to go into an emergency situation in 2 to 3 minutes. It takes about 4 minutes for the heaters to heat. At that point, it'll nominally operate for about 2 hours.
Okay. Phil, you're operating a glass panel aircraft right now. What kind of reversionary gauges, what are your backup gauges like right now? Are they the old steam?
I have a mechanical gauge.
Okay.
We're going to fix that.
But, well, it's only there because I have to drive the autopilot.
Right.
It's not supported yet. But I look at this and I say, it's not just the glass panel guys, glass panel guys.
Right.
It's the guy with his Harley who's a pilot.
Yep.
It's the guy who can find a place for this in his high-tech car.
Yep.
He wants to show he's a pilot, and my gosh, this can mount any place.
Yep,
That's what's
exactly.
great.
It can mount any place. It actually uses a standard 3-inch instrument hole.
Yep.
And so from the back, you can see it has this rounded profile, which fits right into that hole.
Is this standard equipment? This this little lifesaver that you're
mint
supporting?
design.
So if your panel angles off, you just put a mint under it.
There you go.
Okay.
Which reminds me, we can actually adjust it internally from 0 to 8 degrees on the panel tilt.
That's good.
So a canted panel's not an issue.
A canted panel's not an
Okay.
issue, so we can do the full panel on it. Geez, I feel like an Oreo. I got these 2 icons on either side of the soft white center here.
Oh, please. Let's not go there. Phil, in your opinion and from your usage now, we got into glass panel, but we always had to have the old style mechanical gauges as the backup because ultimately it's what we came up with, it's what we trusted. Is the GA community, because of our exposure to the incredible, multi-hundreds of thousands of hours mean time between failure of digital gauges and all, have we gotten to a point now where people are willing to look at our reversionary instrumentation being digital as a really good thing and preferable to the mechanical instrumentation that we grew up with?
Well, I think in looking at the threads on some of the bulletin boards, like for the Bonanza that I own, and watching what pilots are doing, many are actually taking their vacuum pumps out. And I guess at this point, without naming names, that even though the plane was certified with a vacuum pump, if you have the mechanical backup or now this kind of backup, along with glass, you don't need it. And my shop said, you know, we're supposed to, under the service manual on the annual, look for like 500 or 600 hours and replace the vacuum pump. But you not only have the factory vacuum pump, the factory standby, and you don't need it. I'm going to let them go to failure, one of them to failure, and you're not. So this is why I think they're ready to adapt this big.
How do you like the price point?
It's fantastic. I mean, Dennis is competing without mentioning initials, other sort of mechanical, electrical equivalents of this that are higher up in that don't have this functionality. There's still mechanics involved in it.
That's right.
And now you've got
And no tumbling. This will actually do on roll 400 degrees per second.
Okay.
So we're going to give it to Sean Tucker to see what he does with it.
Yeah, Sean will bring it back to you in pieces,
Yeah,
no matter what.
Sure, right, yeah.
I don't care how good it is.
Right.
Sean, nobody can break it like Sean can break it.
Yeah, that's correct.
The way he flies, he's
pretty incredible guy.
He's kind of the wild man, to say the least.
Yeah.
Now, prior to this, you put together this beautiful little transponder, the STX 165, if I recall.
STX 165, which is a Mode C with built-in encoder. It's about 3 inches wide, 1 inch high, and 6 inches deep.
Also dirt cheap, if I recall.
$18.50, yeah, very, very low cost. And they all carry a 3-year warranty. We got thousands of them out right now. We're working great. We're getting great response from our customers.
Good. Well, the obvious question is, as you're building up a product line, is where do you go from here?
Well, the big interest obviously is in ADSB, and as Phil knows, we visited him at one time. When ITT put in the network, they came to us and partially funded us to build a low-cost UAT solution. We didn't introduce it this year, but stand by for news, as Paul Harvey would say.
Yeah.
So that's coming. We just finished another project for a major manufacturer of an exclusive product, which was also introduced here this week. I can't say anything, but it's major. We're now freeing up a little bit of engineering time, so we got a couple more projects in place.
Okay.
And with this nice display, there's a lot of things we can do with it now to build on what we already have.
You know, Dennis is a good example, and one of the few examples I know in the United States over the years that I've known him, and his small company, of an individual looking for specific problems that he makes into opportunities. Good example of this, the UAT, the other things where he finds a need, builds it. And it doesn't necessarily have his name on it in all cases or whatever.
That's right.
But you need something done, and I think he still is in the industry in this manner. Well, let's see what Dennis Schmidt can do with it first.
Well, we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of people that have believed in us. We've been working with great people, both sides. I've had the opportunity to know some wonderful people. And a lot of people are giving us a chance. And so you take and do what you can with it and try to not disappoint. So this is kind of the beginning. You know, we've gone through a really tough recessionary period. We feel we're just on a precipice of really taking off again.
Well, 6.9% growth in 1 year, especially after they adjusted out various fudge factors. That's pretty impressive in this market when we can't really claim much economic growth of all in other industries.
That's right, and you know, we manufacturers are investing a lot of money. There's a lot of cost in certification and development and testing, and we're willing to put that money in. It helps the industry, it helps our dealers, it helps the flying public because we give them better products, more safety, and to us that's very important.
Well, in the last few minutes of this interview, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot because I've asked Mark Lang about some of this, and I'll ask some of the others as we go along. Did a great interview yesterday with Paul Dirks. One of the things that keeps coming up is that this industry is being held back by the costs, delays, and issues with certification.
Right.
Now, we know there's plenty of really great FAA people out there who really want to try to help and are doing their very best.
That's right.
But the plain fact of the matter is that certification costs, delays, so forth and so on, are causing a lot of products that were supposed to be here last year not to be here this year and may not even be here next year the way things are going. how much growth could we reasonably expect if we got rid of that burden?
Oh my goodness. We probably spend 60 to 75% of our design effort in certification.
Oof.
I'll take for instance, our transponder, which we mentioned was 3 inches wide, 1 inch deep, high, 6 inches deep. The documentation package that we submitted to the FAA was 5,000 pages.
Okay.
I'm not sure what Obamacare was, but I don't think it was that many. So we do have a lot of documentation.
Hopefully your transponder works better than Obamacare.
Yes, it does. It'll keep you out of trouble. So I think the thing is that, yes, if we can get rid of some of that burdensome overhead, and even doing it to those standards, I think it's good. We want safety in the cockpit. We had one thing at one time where a DER, a designated engineering rep, could review all of our data, and then he could approve it. Now he can only recommend it, so now we got to go through a second level. Mm-hmm. If they could get back to that, that would save us a lot of effort, even doing the same testing and certification programs.
As a guy on a fixed income, now that I'm retired, I think it affects the consumer.
Oh,
I think it affects me, the pilot, the owner, of they have to add that cost someplace.
We do.
And it goes into what we pay. I think on the horizon, and I don't know where all of a sudden you got this, well, there are a lot of good FAA people. You're starting to sound like those of us who live in the association world had to placate those in Washington. But there are. Yeah. But at the same time, I got to tell you, I see a little light at the end of the tunnel. The LSA certification through ASTM. Yep. Now, the certification of the AOA indicators and things.
That's huge.
Begin to put some of things like, things
Camel's
that,
nose under the
transponder either it's a beacon that somebody gets or it doesn't.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
How do we need 5,000 pages?
Yeah. That's right. But it's a requirement. And again, we put a lot of them in experimental aircraft, soaring aircraft, light aircraft. But our cost of certification for that is the same as if I put it in a Boeing 777. So I think when you look at the mark of the 10, there should be some...
At this point, I think you should be really lucky not to be in a 777 at the moment, but it's
another
story entirely. Interesting. All righty. Well, where can people get more information on the SAI 340 Quattro?
It will be put on the website tomorrow. We just introduced it today, and if they could come to www.sandia.aero, AERO, you can look at that and all of our other products.
Okay.
AeroTV's coverage of the 57th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from Nashville, Tennessee, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
The TI-250 DC to AC inverter pumps out 250 watts of clean, regulated AC cabin or cockpit power. It's perfect for laptops, iPads, tablets, chargers, and special missions equipment. Available from your local Avionics dealer.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.